Hey everyone, welcome back. We are here today with the next PGRZ roundtable. Today we are doing top 20 through 11. Today will be hosted by myself, Nakkiel, with Panda Global, and I am accompanied by BC LordKnight and Rynge. If you guys want to do your little introductions as usual.
Yeah, I'm Rynge, commentator for Dragonball FighterZ and many other games. Excited to be here for the entirety of the PGRZ, where we're taking a look at 50 all the way down to 1 for the top rankings of Dragonball FighterZ entire lifespan so far in the fighting game community. Of course, you can hit exclamation point PGRZ in the chat to bring up that list of today's rankings, which would be 20 through 11. But yeah, that's all for me.
What's up, guys? It's LordKnight, Dragon Ball player for Beast Coast, YouTuber. You already know how it goes. You already talked about where to find the lists. Hope you enjoyed today's stream.
All right, thanks, guys. So we're going to kick it off with number 20 today. We are going to start with a free agent coming from Japan. You may know him from some other fighting games such as BlazBlue or Persona 4 Arena. He's very well known in those games. We have Soji coming in at number 20. He has some very good placements. Season 1, he got 13th at EVO, 17th at CEO, 7th at UFA, and starting in Season 2, one of his most notable placements was 17th at Season 2's EVO as well. He's taken out some strong players such as Fenrich, Moke, Tachikawa, Nokami, and Supernoon, and was also very well known and respected for his Ginyu play.
Most definitely. Was a Ginyu warrior for a time, for sure. Soji's always been one of the more entertaining players for me coming out of Japan. Really just confident in his decision making. We've talked a lot about that being a characteristic of strong Dragon Ball FighterZ players over the course of the PGRZ breakdowns, and I think he's no different from that. Just overall a super solid fighting game player, not only in this game but as you mentioned other fighting games as well, and just overall consistent placings. We can see nothing below a 17th right here on the projected wins or on the highlighted wins. And yeah, I mean, he's just been a very consistent player from Japan since he's been in the fighting game community, and no surprise to see him making the top 20 on PGRZ.
Yeah, actually, as far as Soji, I'm pretty surprised to see him playing the game in general. Like, if you know his style from other games, it's really nothing like Dragon Ball at all. So seeing him play Ginyu and being successful with Ginyu is a really good thing. He managed to mold his play style into the game, which is definitely a really cool part about watching him play.
Yeah, he's always been like really technical and more patient, especially with his Arakune play in BlazBlue and Teddy in Persona. So no real surprise that he would gravitate towards a character like Ginyu. But yeah, his playstyle is definitely difficult to show in Dragon Ball FighterZ, so it's cool to see him adapted into the game. Jumping down to 19, we have a current free agent hailing from USA. We have Supernoon, one of the top 8 finalists in Season 1 EVO. He came in at 7th that year. He also got 9th at CEO, and coming into Season 2, he got 7th at the World Tour Finals and 5th at World Tour Japan, taking out players such as Kazunoko, Fenrich, Tachikawa, and I think Moke and Nokami are mistakes on the list. He said himself he doesn't recall playing Nokami in tournament, and don't think he's actually ever beaten Moke. But the other names on that list are definitely very notable, especially the Kazunoko win. That was pretty much a demon for Supernoon for a little while. Every time he played him, he was having trouble closing that out, and finally took him out the last time they played.
Yeah, definitely one of the most consistent players, I think, on the list so far. I'm actually pretty surprised to see him at number 19 and not higher. I definitely think this is a player that could have made like a 9 or a 10 run, definitely in the top 10. But nevertheless, he's just been like a top 8 after top 8. We can see 2 to 3 top 8s, on the highlighted wins here. One at EVO, one at the World Tour Finals, 2 of the biggest tournaments that were available for Dragon Ball FighterZ. And that was the first EVO where they had like 2,500 entrants or whatever the big entrance numbers were. And then 5th place, going to Japan and getting 5th place there, very impressive as well. He's just always been a player that's grinded it out, and that's pretty much been his story as long as I've known him, which I've known him for quite a while, when he came back and played Marvel 3 when he was like a 13-year-old kid at Super Arcade. So he's always been a grinder. He's always been one to just do what he needs to do to win, and he tries to constantly analyze his gameplay, just very thoughtful player, even though he goes pretty nutty in the game himself. So yeah, big ups to Supernoon. I think he should be higher on the list, but you know.
Yeah, Supernoon is definitely a player we could talk about. Like his max level, like his biggest wins are really, really huge wins. Like when you talk about beating people like Kazunoko, Fenrich, um, like players like that specifically, that they're probably in discussion of like top 5 players ever, right? So
Yeah.
he peaked super, 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 super high. He's just an all around confident player. Always generally sticks with the same thing. I feel the placement is probably more that like he experimented a little bit with like a few teams and maybe didn't perform as well for a little while before going back to like his core sauce. But when he's playing the team that he really wants to play, then he performs really well.
Yeah, definitely a player to look out for. Very strong. Has some results to back that up. So happy to see him on the list, but I probably also agree that he has the capability to be higher on the list for sure. Coming down at number 18, we are going to be moving back to Japan, another free agent. We are coming in with Mado. Very strong player. Pretty much known for his Yamcha play, I think, is probably one of the most notable things about him. His Yamcha is incredibly strong. He came in at 7th at Japan World Tour event in Season 1. And in World Tour Finals, he came in at 5th in Season 2, 7th at Spain, and 9th at CEO. He's taken out players such as Kazunoko, Dogra, Shanks, Moke, Wawa, and many more. Also has some very strong history back in Guilty Gear. Pretty well known as a Venom player.
Yeah, Mado's definitely been around the block a few times, right? And he's performed very well in Dragonball FighterZ in both Season 1 and Season 2. You can see multiple top 8 placings and then a 9th at CEO. Just overall impressive as always. You mentioned the Yamcha being the real highlight for him, most definitely. And just in general, I think his wins, he has, again, some of the biggest wins. We talked a little bit about that with Supernoon. Again, Mado as well, right? Kazunoko, Shanks, Wawa. These are top names that are most likely going to be in the top 10. So it's impressive that he's already beaten those players. And he's just a guy that I'm looking forward to keep on rising and keep on performing at that top 8 level as long as Dragon Ball FighterZ maintains its lifespan.
Yeah, it's cool now. We got the Persona players starting to show up. So Mado, another coincidentally Teddy God, but unlike Soji trying to replicate the same thing, he kind of just went with like he's kind of a I have to do what I got to do type of player, and it definitely shows. Like he picked what's good. He saw what was good. He didn't. I don't even think he started the game when the game dropped. I think he started a little bit later than everyone else. Just saw what was good, played, practiced, and then just came out.
Yeah, I think something to note about him as well that separates him from a lot of players is that his defensive choices in DBFZ at least are very, very strong. He's extremely good at using system mechanics and things like fuzzy jump and just OSs in general to keep himself safe on defense. He can actually be pretty frustrating to fight against sometimes due to how strong he is at making use of those options. So he's definitely a long-time anime player, and it's been very cool to see him pretty much flourish in DBFZ even more. So looking forward to seeing more of him. Coming down to number 17, we have another big-name anime player as well as a Marvel player. We have Cho. You may also know him as Superboy from Japan. He's a free agent currently. He came in at 4th at Japan World Tour. 17th, or sorry, he came in at 4th at, I can't actually tell what tournament that is. The logos are kind of hard to tell. 17th at World Tour Japan in Season 1. 2nd at KVOX TSB and 33rd at Season 2 EVO. He's got some notable wins under his belt, such as Fenrich, Dogra, the Kill Sage, Aqua, and Mado.
Yeah, it's the sixth Saga event, that first 4th placing. I'm not sure what it was from Season 1, which tournament that actually was, but it's from the sixth Saga event. And you mentioned, yeah, Cho, I mean, we've known about him for quite some time. I got familiar with him, not even because of watching BlazBlue, but because of watching Marvel, right? We mentioned both games and him just performing at an absolute high level in pretty much anything he picks up. He's one of those guys, you know? And the story has been no different in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Obviously, he was really, really prominent in Season 1. You can see the placings right there. 2nd at KSB, multiple top 8s. Really a force to be reckoned with. In Season 2, we didn't see him as much performing at that high level. As you can see, 33rd at EVO. Kind of underperforming from his Season 1 placings. But besides that, I mean, he's always a guy that's going to be a threat. He's always going to be a top-level player in whatever he chooses to put his mind to. So great to see Cho. Glad that he's playing Dragon Ball FighterZ. I want to see him replicate those Season 1 placings more than anything going forward.
Yeah, I'm actually. I said this last time they did a PGRZ. I'm gonna say it again. I'm a super huge Cho fanboy. I've known about him for like literally 10 years now.
Yep.
In Blaze Blue, the first time I saw him play, I basically was like, "Oh my god, unknown OD Lychee," and he continued game after game after game to be a top player. He was the first person to actually take Goichi to the brink. I think that's that KBO second, and he's really good at finding like really strong strategies quickly. So before they nerfed what's his name, SJ Vegeta, he was running Ginyu SJ Vegeta. That was really cheap until they nerfed all the stuff. But since then, he has done really well in the game in general. I'm never surprised to see him perform well in this game or any other game.
Yeah, it's been very cool, especially for, like LK mentioned, especially for both of us, because we were both Lychee players in Blaze Blue, and he is pretty much one of the legendary Lychee players, at least for a very long time while he was focusing on the game. He was absolutely one of the strongest Blaze Blue players out there. So very cool to see him in DBFZ. I know right now he's been messing around with Base Vegeta, Yamcha, pretty much run-of-the-mill top-tier picks. But I think that's usually been what he gravitates towards in most games in general. Moving down to number 16, we are coming to another Japanese free agent. We have Aqua, another big-name Ginyu player. Came in at 9th at EVO, 5th at World Tour 6, and 7th at SEAM. He has notable wins on Dogra, Hook Gang God, Shanks, Apology Man, and as we just mentioned, Cho. Yeah, you guys take it away.
When it comes to Aqua, we see three highlighted placings. Missing a 4th. I feel like he's very tied to Ginyu in my mind, at least in my history from Dragon Ball FighterZ. What I am like imagining in my head, like when Ginyu got things changed that he didn't like, we kind of saw Aqua, I think, kind of fade from not only the results, but I think like his love of the game a little bit. He seemed very frustrated when I see him play at Fighting Tuesdays. There didn't seem to be a lot of love in his play once they kind of changed a lot about Ginyu. So I mean, you guys correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's kind of my take on Aqua so far in Dragon Ball FighterZ.
Yeah, Aqua is definitely another one from the Ginyu army, the Ginyu Japanese army that we were so scared of in EVO Season 1. I'm the same as you. I kind of think about Ginyu only. Like, he's played other characters, played Team Gohan and stuff, but I think Ginyu is like really what got him into the game. It's probably like his favorite character to play, and he always does best when he plays Ginyu in general. He came out swinging really, really strong in Season 1 and in Season 2, to be honest. He's always been like a top player from East Japan, so I definitely expect to see more from him.
Yeah, he kind of fell off playing. I think a lot of the Fighting Tuesday players went through a similar thing, as we mentioned on a previous list with Kaimato, is that a good few of them grew pretty frustrated with the game at one point and kind of fell off or took a break. As Japan World Tour Saga came around in Season 2, though, he was starting to play again a lot more, and definitely was no slouch. He was taking home a lot of local events. And I don't remember what exact place he got at the Japan Saga, but I have no doubt that he made a strong impact there. We'll be coming down to number 15 here. We're going to be going over Evil Genius's Chris G. You know him as a Marvel 3 Evo champion and a pretty much multi-game powerhouse. He came in at 4th at Combo Breaker in Season 1, 2nd at Winter Brawl, with one of the first big sets against Sonic Fox. Season 2, he came in at 7th at EVO and 5th at Combo Breaker, having notable wins against said Sonic Fox, Kazunoko, Hook Gang God, Shanks, Moke, and many, many more players. And those are just, a very few number of those under his belt.
Yeah, most definitely. Like the article says, right, former Evo champion and definitely one of the undisputed gods of Marvel vs. Capcom 3, right? One of the greatest runs we've ever seen in any game came from Chris G playing Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And as you mentioned, he didn't only perform very well in that game, but pretty much any game he touched, right? He's one of those. He was that guy that you see at NEC taking home like 30 medals because he entered every game and placed top 8 in every game. He's one of those, right? And I feel like he's one of those players that when they are at the top of their game, they can beat anyone. He's one of those. So No surprise to see Chris G in the top 15. Again, I think this is a guy that maybe could have even gotten higher overall on the PGRZ rankings. You can see the placings have been consistent from season 1 all the way through season 2. He's always been a performer. And even I think when he was a little bit slept on in season 2, he came out the gate and had a 7th placing at EVO, a top 8 placing, when I think he was kind of taking the game a little bit more casually, not to say super casually, because obviously he's a competitive player and a top level competitive player at that, but in a sense where he was really bouncing around the character select screen. He was playing a lot of different teams on his stream and just exploring the game, and to still come in and compete at the top level like he usually does is always impressive.
Yeah, there's not much to say about Chris G, right? Like, it's definitely a team game. He's a master at team games. I don't know about multiple, but I know he's won Marvel vs. Capcom 3 EVO. And like many of the players, now that we're this deep into the list, it's almost like a norm that we've talked about it already with like Cho, and we didn't mention with Aqua, but he's another one, Soji. They're all like multi-fighting game, very, very successful in multiple games. And you're going to see it more and more as we close in on the rest of the list, I think.
Yeah, for sure. He has made a name for himself in pretty much any game that he's decided to focus on, from Third Strike to Marvel 3, as we know, to Dragon Ball, to things like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter 5. You know, anything that he decides to play, he's always been, at minimum, very strong at it. Even if he's not taking home tournament wins, he is constantly finding himself in top 8. And as you'll see on his Twitter sometimes, boosting his medal collection. We'll be coming down to number 14 with Will to Win Gaming's Nokami, hailing from the USA. Season 1, he came in at 5th at EVO, NEC 2nd, and in Season 2, he came in at 5th at CEO and 17th at EVO. He has some very big wins that he's taken home against players like Sonic Fox, Shanks, To Kill Sage, Wawa, and Bombabon. You may also know him before. He was a pretty notable Eddie player in Guilty Gear Surd.
Yeah, big ups to Nokami, is Zato player. That's what I'm talking about on the list. But besides that, of course, besides my love for Zato, he's just a very impressive player, and I admire like the way he approaches competition and the in-game meta mentally. Like, I think he's a very mentally strong player. You can see the placings he's gotten very impressive, especially that first top 8 run at EVO. But even in Season 2, when I think he didn't show up to as many events, the events he did show up to, he still placed incredibly well. You can see 5th at CEO, 17th at EVO in the second year. And yeah, he's always just impressed me with the way he thinks about the game. He's very confident in his opinions about it. And I just think it's been dope to watch him really grow, because I found out about him like right before Dragon Ball FighterZ from Exert and Zato. So it was cool to see like a person that I just got familiar with Zato transition to another game and do very well in it as well. So yeah, big ups to Nokami. Always one of my favorite players on the list for sure.
Yeah, my favorite thing about him, I'm lucky enough to get to train a lot with him when he was playing more. He's definitely like a student of the game, willing to explore things that people aren't already doing. A really great example is that Evo run, right? Like that at that time, looking back in hindsight, we're like, oh, Android 21 was ridiculous. But at that time, a lot of people thought she wasn't that strong, but he was willing to commit with his knowledge, and he really, really surprised a lot of people. And I think that's a really, really special thing he has as a player.
Yeah, very strong player. He did fall off a bit in Season 2 due to some personal things. He took a step away from the scene, but it's been very cool to see him starting to stream the game again and take part in the community. And I'm super excited to, you know, see him around at tournaments once we get back into the swing of things. Coming down at number 13, you either love him or hate him for microwaving his milk. We got Beast Coast Apology Man coming from the USA. Season 1 coming in at 7th at CEO, 5th at the World Tour Finals in Season 2, 9th at EVO, and 7th at Combo Breaker. Most well known for his Piccolo play, seeing as he was one of the very, very early and few adopters of the character and stuck with him for most of the game's life. He has some very strong wins against players like Sonic Fox, To Kill Sage, Wawa, Bombabon, and Tachikawa.
Apology Man. I mean, what's there to say about Apology Man, really, right? You mentioned he is just a meme factory, but he takes it in good stride, right? A lot of the time, he doesn't let it get too much under his skin. He often plays into it, not afraid to laugh at himself, and he's just a great personality and a great player in the scene for sure. As you mentioned, a Piccolo specialist, and he's always one of those that wants to play something a little bit outside the box, but as long as it's really cheap too, right? Like obviously Firebrand in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Firebrand and MVCI, now Piccolo in this game. He plays something that's not completely unorthodox, but definitely something that is not the most popular, and he always makes it work for him at the top level. So entertaining player, entertaining personality, got nothing but love for him and hate for him, of course, because it's fun to do that too. So yeah, big ups to Apology Man. I'll kick it to his teammate for the rest.
Yeah, my teammate Apology Man. Not actually that much to say. You basically covered it all. Like that's another person who is willing to stick with his guns. He found something that was good and suited him, and it got to the point, he got so ridiculous with it that Japan had to sit and grind just to get ready for him and Hook, right? And reached that extreme. And then even season 2, still continuing to like push the character. You can tell he's a really dedicated player, really focused player, and I'm really glad to see him this high on the list.
Yeah, very nice to see I guess a lot of people don't know anymore, considering most people are familiar with his runs in UMVC3, but I know Apology Man from BlazBlue, where he first started playing fighting games. So very cool to see yet another BlazBlue player high up on the list. So yeah, definitely shout outs to Apology Man. Good to see him here. Moving down to number 12, we have Burning Core's Tachikawa, a Japanese fan favorite. Season 1, he came in at 3rd at Japan Saga, or at World Tour Saga 6. Season 2, NCR 2018. Well, that's Season 1, actually. That's 4th. And he came in at 4th at World Tour Finals in Season 2 and 5th at Combo Breaker. And most notably at Season 2 in the World Tour Finals is that he made a huge, gigantic, emotional run out of LCQ, defending himself from having the bracket reset, and then went on to defeat more players despite being undoubtedly exhausted from LCQ, winding up at 4th place. He has some really strong wins against players like Sonic Fox, Dogra, Moke, To Kill Sage, Wawa, and as you can imagine, from a player that had qualified through LCQ, there's a ton more names on that list.
Yeah, and I mean, I really just want to talk about that run, right? Tachikawa, the way the second season of the Dragon Ball FighterZ Tour went was that the top 15 of points were getting invited to the finals, and then the last 16 spot was going to be through an LCQ. Tachikawa tied with Seo, I believe, for that 15th spot. Yeah. But the way the tiebreaker ended up going, I think it went to like the big saga tournaments, like the I forgot what they were actually called, but the big tournaments that pretty much auto qualified you for the finals. And Tachikawa couldn't make it because one of those was Evo, and he had been DQ'd from Evo because he was in Japan sick. He was in the hospital. He couldn't actually make the tournament, therefore he didn't get any placings. So even without a placing at Evo, he managed to tie for that 15th spot, but of course lost the tiebreaker and then came back in the LCQ and won the entire thing. And then, as Nakkiel mentioned, went on to take 4th place in the overall finals. I mean, it was incredibly emotional. One of my favorite runs of any fighting game player in any game ever since I've been following the FGC. My favorite Japanese fighting game player. It's great to see him on the list. And yeah, I mean, I'm a big Tachikawa fan.
Yeah, and just to jump back in really quick, apologies, is that another thing to note about finals itself too is that top 16 was pool round robin in the pool, right? So it wasn't double elim where you play fewer matches. Like, he was grinding out those matches all the entire event.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fan favorite in general, right? It has a lot of things that people like. In Season 1, he was playing like Hit 18 Frieza, so all super uncommon characters. He's another person who, and this is kind of a theme in like our 15 to 11, where like they kind of find their own flavor in the game. They don't necessarily follow the meta. It wasn't until the end of Season 2, and I kind of relate to this too, because I had a similar moment where it was like, all right, I really seriously tried everything in this game. Let's see what happens when I play what we all agree is the best. And he went really, really far with it, as expected.
Yeah, I think another fun thing to note about Tachikawa, especially in Season 1 when he was playing so many uncommon characters, is that he was one of the only early Gotenks players, along with players like Yohoshi and such. But he was one of the first players to start actually using Ghost Oki, and he also taught that technique to Kazunoko. So you can blame him for that. Coming down to number 11, our last player of the day is my teammate, Panda Global's Bombabon, coming from Japan. He got 5th place at Final Summoning in Season 1, 13th at EVO in Season 2, 5th at World Tour Spain, and 9th at World Tour Finals. He is one of the very few players who can say that they've beaten Goichi in a set, as well as Sonic Fox, Kazunoko, Fenrich, Shanks, and again, like we've been mentioning, when you're high up on the list, there's many more players that you've defeated throughout your career.
Yeah, Bombabon's resume is quite impressive, and the fact that it's this impressive when the first time we saw him in Season 1 was at Red Bull Final Summoning, right? Like, at least as far as I know there were some people that had rumblings of Bombabon that were doing really good, but I was big asleep going into that tournament, and he woke me the hell up for sure. We know him a little bit from Street Fighter 4, right? Very good Street Fighter 4 player, but didn't travel that much. And it was so surprising. Like, I remember being at Red Bull Final Summoning and just watching Bombabon cook everybody. And I was like, what? My mind was blown. I just couldn't believe that he came out of nowhere, seemingly to me, and started just beasting in Dragon Ball FighterZ and playing at the very top level and really utilizing, like, air mobility and the Super Saiyan Goku assist, like, better than almost anybody up to that point. So it was just an amazing run. One of my favorite moments was Bombabon at that Red Bull Final Summoning for sure.
Yeah, this is probably the number one person I was warning people about for the LCQ was Bombabon. Of course, I talked about Kindevu as well, but I've had many evenings of Bombabon smoking me as I was trying to settle on a team for Australia Saga in the World Tour Finals of Season 1. He's a true multi-game specialist, right? Not just Street Fighter, like Persona, many games. They literally call him a robot, and he really kind of just found something really good in this game. For American players, he's the first example of how strong Bardock SSJ Goku is. That's when we started picking it up, was after we saw him play. That's how good it was and how effective he was at the first year's World Tour Finals with it.
Yeah, and he had some like incredible dirt with the team back then as well. And just to touch on the air mobility thing, is that his movement in Dragon Ball FighterZ at least is insanely good. And sometimes I'm playing casuals with him, and he is often frustrating to fight, right? His movement is that good that it drives you to the point of insanity sometimes, right? You're like, damn, I just can't touch this dude. I can't catch him. And he has pretty much done that to anyone he's fought against. Even players like Goichi, you can tell that if you go back and watch their set at World Tour Finals, he also used that tactic against Goichi a lot. It's pretty much his signature in Dragon Ball FighterZ, and he was one of the first players to really wake up the rest of the world to using things like super jump float in neutral and such tactics like that. Right now he's focusing a lot on Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. He's probably pretty at home in that game currently, as we mentioned, his long-time history in being pretty much godlike Kami player in Street Fighter. So you can definitely look out for him in that game right now too. But that is going to cover it for our 20 to 11 list today. Our next roundtable will be the final one, going through 10 through the glorious number 1, and that will be Friday evening. Once again hosted by myself, with LordKnight and Rynge taking part.
Go over predictions, then we'll go home.
So as far as 10 through 1 goes, I think we all know a lot of the names that are going to be on it, but I guess at this point we can probably start guessing at the order. So, Rynge, I'll start with you. Who do you think is going to be where on the 10 through 1?
Okay, so I'm not sure on the order of 6 through 10. I have thought about the order of 1 through 5, so I'll give that it. But I think 6 through 10 is going to consist of Dogra, Moke, so 10, 9, and then Shanks, Wawa, 8, 7, and then one more person that probably really obvious that I'm forgetting. Hook. There you go. Thank you. Yeah, so Hook would be the last one. Sorry, I probably snapped very loudly into the mic. But yeah, those would be 6 through 10, right, in some type of order. I think 1 through 5 in order. I think 5 is going to be the Kill Sage. I think 4 is going to be, I think 3 and 4 are the hardest for me. I think I know 1 and 2. I think 4
I feel like
is
Wawa
going to
is going to be in that top 5.
You think so? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but that could be the case. Wawa could probably beat Sage for like 5th, I think. But I would say 4th and 3rd would probably be, I'm going to go Fenrich at 4th, Sonic Fox at 3rd, and I think they're going to put Kazunoko at 2nd and Goichi at 1st.
Ooh, it's okay. We're thinking kind of similar a little bit. But I actually think it's going to be Goichi 1, Sonic 2, Kaz 3, Fenrich 4, 5 is Wawa, 6 is the Kill Sage, 7 is Dogura, 8 is Moke, 9 is Hook, and then 10 is Shanks. That is my order.
It's interesting.
Yes.
I think... I guess since the time span, right, I think that is probably pretty close to the truth. My immediate reaction is like, I think Shanks is going to be higher than number 10. But I can see that for sure. I think top 5 is probably very something similar to LK's list. I would understand, but also be a little surprised if Kaz was above Sonic.
I would personally put Sonic at 2nd, but I think the way it's going to come out is positive.
Because the thing is, Sonic won Evo.
Yeah.
Sonic won Evo, and then 2nd at
better
Evo.
At Summit, right?
Better at Summit as well.
2nd at Season 2 Evo.
Yeah.
Plenty of like wins and also 2nd places if he didn't win. But yeah, I definitely see them being higher than Kazunoko, but like I said, I could understand them being under, right?
Yeah. Depends on how much they weigh that World Finals.
I am very interested in that 6 through 10, though. I think top 5 is pretty universally understood. But yeah, 6 through 10 will probably be the most interesting point of that list, I think. So I'm looking forward to it. Hope you guys are too. That is going to be all for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, hanging out with the 3 of us while we go through these roundtables. Friday will be our final one for this PGRZ. And yeah, again, just thank you so much. Thank you, Rynge. Thank you, LK. Make sure you guys follow them on Twitter, Twitch, and type in !PGRZ if you would like to read the articles for 20 through 11 today, and then all the previous articles from the past week as well.